I'm gonna jump down onto the ground.
Okay. Got Canadian John here.
Hey John, welcome buddy.
Susan Dowdy.
Welcome.
Lori Keller.
Hey Keller.
Bear and the Boss Lady.
There.
Dally you. Rhinestone Suzanne.
Hey, Suzanne. Quickly, let me just shout out some of our members. Suzanne, Rhinestone Suzanne is a member. Just started chainsaw carving. Her and the boss lady do awesome live streams. You should check them out.
Lori Keller's a member.
What's that? Yes, Lori Keller. Is our favorite person and a member.
Billy Shoemates.
Hey, Billy.
Did I say Creighton Carves?
You did now.
Okay.
Hey, Creighton.
Happy Curmudgeon Carving, aka Matthew.
Matthew has a YouTube channel now.
Ray and Sandy.
Hey, Randy.
Dale Gribble.
What's that?
Dale Gribble.
I quickly wanted to shout out Ray and Sandy's channel.
Yeah.
He's a woodworker, a ground level tribe member, and an awesome supporter of everybody's channel.
Joseph. We got Carlos, says nice work.
Thank you.
LJ Woodworks.
Hey, Elegant.
No, LJ.
I quickly want to say thank you to Elegant. He's sponsored memberships on our channel. Check out Elegant Woodworks. The guy has built I guess a bassinet or a crib or something of this nature. It's just phenomenal. So really cool channel to support and check out.
Mariella, Kalina Emrich. Cindy says gonna be a beautiful piece.
Gonna give the chainsaw a drink and we'll be right back at it.
Ramo says, very nice, bro.
Thank you, sir.
Betty Kimball.
Welcome, Betty.
Got over, well, just dropped down, but we had over 2,000 people watching.
Wow.
Iron Raw is here.
Really appreciate it. Don't forget to hit the like button. That helps the channel. And really appreciate all you guys being here and watching us carve and hanging out with us.
There says he saw up to 2.5 thousand at one time.
Wow. That is just amazing. We love to hear it.
Trading Cars says 2282 is the highest they saw. We got Angela Flores. I think I saw that too, Bear. I think it was around 2,500 or something like that. Got Bella Sargent here.
What? Bella Sargent?
Thought you'd want to know.
Guys, that's my daughter. I love you. Oh, so awesome. Very proud of that kid, man.
tries to carve.
Who is it?
Mark tries to carve.
Hey, Mark. You're in there, buddy. Mark's got a cool channel.
Valdinel.
Welcome.
CK. Carlos. Trucker Kevin gave us $10.
Right on. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thanks,
Appreciate
Father
it.
Dearest.
It's awesome. We have so much support. Such a great community. We call the community the tribe, and we just appreciate everybody being here and hanging out with us.
Is Elegant still in there? Elegant says that he got a package today.
Right on. Glad to hear it. You should have got 2 packages, or there's 2 on the way anyways.
Yep.
Which, did he say which package he received?
He is in there.
Elegant is?
Yep.
Nice. Awesome channel to support right there. I know he's a big supporter of Bear and the Boss Lady's channel, as well as our channel. So we really appreciate doing the Elegant Woodcraft.
He said, thank you very much.
Yep. I don't know if Bella's still in there, but...
She's not anymore. Nope.
No, she had to go?
She had to go. She said she was on her break.
That's too bad.
So he got a black mug.
Ah, right on.
So he got one more thing coming.
Yeah, cool. Is there some mountain water around here?
Yes,
I don't want to waste too much time.
over there on the little stand. We have 944 likes, just so you know. I think we're gonna hit 1,000.
I think, wow, that would be the first time ever hitting 1,000 likes. So, that would be really cool. And we appreciate all the likes we've already got.
Elegant said, another thing, you guys are awesome. Thank you. Keller's still in there hanging out.
Cool. So this is a custom ordered piece, and these customers, I'll just tell you real quick, and we're going to get right back to work, but they're my longest running customers. I've been a professional chainsaw carver for 28 years, and I'm pretty sure that they were here the very first year to buy something. And so they were from Long Island, New York. They just recently moved up to our area, and they've got a huge collection of my carvings, but they wanted to add this one. And originally they might have bought this one over here, but he wanted an 8-inch diameter post, so that's what we're up to.
Bear says that we are at 7.72 thousand subs. I think that would be like over 500 subscribers. Pete Gunn says, pure art, nice job, bud, you're amazing.
Thank you very much.
So first thing, I don't know if Clyde Frog's still in here, but gave $10.
Who did?
Clyde Frog.
Say it again.
Clyde Frog.
Clyde Frog.
Yep.
We appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Michael S. just gave $5.
Michael. Michael S. is one of our biggest channel supporters.
I think we got people wanting to
And,
purchase something. So
It's
I'm gonna.
okay. I'm
Okay.
gonna talk to them.
1 minute.
Michael is one of our biggest channel supporters. And first them, okay?
Yep.
And then we'll worry about the others. Michael S. and Belinda S. are just awesome people. They're kind of on the ground level of the tribe supporting us before a lot of other stuff. Sorry, a little distracted here. We've got a bunch of people that are flooding the parking lot, and I think they're going to need attention of some sort. Casey may have to go sort through that a little bit. I'm going to keep carving, but you guys she'll put you on like a stand in a stationary position temporarily, and just let them know that you're busy.
Yep.
And we're going to get back to work.
Okay.
We wanted to pick something up, so
I'll be right with you.
you guys have a minute. Awesome work, by the way. Before you start getting busy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Got Woodchucker,
Hey, Woodchucker.
Teresa Hamilton,
Teresa, thank you for being here, guys.
Pam Smith.
Yeah. How are we doing on time and stuff?
We are, it's at It's 5:23 right now.
5:23?
Yep.
What do you think? Should we switch gears?
Sure. Daniel Torres asks, where are you located?
So we're in the White Mountains of New Hampshire. And yeah, we're surrounded by beautiful mountains and rivers and streams. And as a matter of fact, we have a video dropping tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock. Check out our new video. I'm really proud of the editing and the work that we did on this one, and it really showcases our area, a lot of the beautiful mountains, and we go brook trout fishing and carve a big bear. So 6 o'clock tomorrow morning, that video is going to drop.
Lorena's here.
We like the rough carvings out on the live streams, so this is pretty well roughed out. From here on out, it's going to get real tedious, real slow. We find that people don't typically care to watch that too much, so we've got maybe 45 minutes or an hour left on the live stream or something, and we're just going to switch gears and rough out a little mushroom now.
Dennis says hi. Elegant says it looks awesome. Raja is here.
Welcome, Raja. Check out Raja Vindi Gohana's channel. He's over in India. He's a lathe worker, and just awesome to watch his skill.
Elegant would like to know what is in that jar.
The famous question. We went through this all last winter. Everybody thought I had moonshine in here, but this is clear, cold Mountain Dew. Water straight out of the mountains. And I wouldn't dare touch those chainsaws and mix alcohol in there. Not a smart thing. As a matter of fact, the thing that makes this the most special is that it's in a mason jar. So everybody was really questioning the whole moonshine thing until winter hit last year, and I was freezing cold and my water started freezing. I guess everybody realized moonshine doesn't freeze. So that being said, I should do the disclaimer real quick, and then we're going to move on and start carving again. And basically, chainsaws are extremely dangerous. I highly recommend that you do not use chainsaws for any purpose. If you need chainsaw work done, I recommend that you hire a professional. And beyond that, carving with a chainsaw is the absolute most dangerous way that you can do use a chainsaw. Please don't do it at home.
Daniel Torres said, I have a neighbor had a big tree cut down here in a mobile home park there. About 10-foot bottom. I think it would be a project for a chainsaw master.
Wow, that sounds like a really huge log. We've got a big one sitting over there, but I don't know. That's definitely, if it's 10-foot diameter, that's not a 10-foot diameter. The radius of it would be really big, but the diameter, I think, on that big end is like 5 feet or a little more.
Woodworker's Dilemma is here.
Hey Joe, appreciate you joining us. Joe's been a long time tribe supporter, ground level tribe member, and all around good guy. We love Joe.
Michael S. says that's Monster Log CD. Elegant asks what you're going to do with it.
You know, I've been kind of just tossing that around. That's even a big log for me. So when I get them like that, I do like to wait and do something really spectacular. So I'm brainstorming. I haven't figured it out yet.
Agostino says, very good, my friend. Looks like they're from Brazil.
Thank you. We love Brazil. We love palm trees. We love beaches. And Brazil oftentimes is our second most viewed country that views our channel. First is the United States. Then it's, a lot of times it's Brazil. Sometimes it's Canada. But we love Brazil. We love Brazilian people.
Elegant asks, next question, how do you keep the shirt clean?
How do you keep it clean? This one? I don't worry about cleanliness. I mean, it says it's fancy, but it doesn't really mean it is. Chainsaw carving is, thing's a feast. I'm gonna get that up there.
Brandon asks, how do I buy one of these My dad died of cancer a week ago, and I want to buy a garden for my mother.
Let me tell you, I'm sorry for your
Yes.
loss. I'm sorry to hear that. We're in the White Mountains in New Hampshire, and we typically find that it's extraordinarily expensive to ship carvings these days. We used to ship them a lot back in the 90s and early 2000s. Shipping was very reasonable. Now it typically costs more to ship the carving than it does to buy it. And I would say shipping is almost non-existent on chainsaw carvings. So unless you're near the White Mountains in New Hampshire, it might not work out.
Pete Gunn says Space Needle from Washington State. Oh, he's talking about the square on your shirt. I think it's just the material. It's like a, I don't know,
Yeah,
a weird material.
we actually shipped you a shirt, Elegant. And you'll see when you get the shirt that these shirts that YouTube makes, it's almost like a laminated plastic thing that goes on. So it just kind of worked out nice for us. It slides off the plastic.
Bill Clark, great job. Bill from Scotland, UK.
Welcome. Well, I'm going to switch out, put on a smaller bar, and that smaller chain's going to be sharp. This thing's getting kind of dull after working that whole log.
Pete Gunn's, when he said Space Needle, he meant the carving for the big log. That's what you should do.
Oh, what now?
The Space Needle.
Space Needle? I don't even know if I know what that is.
I don't really either. We'll have to look it up.
Okay.
I'm sure it's cool.
Maybe it's like a Star Wars thing or something.
Palato Creations is here.
Welcome, Palato.
We are at 1,100 likes.
What? Oh my goodness, you didn't tell me that. That's crazy. That blows our record way out of the water.
Delan is here.
Hey, Delan. We do appreciate all the likes. Delan's having a fundraiser for the Wounded Warrior Project. And we contributed to the funding on the project. And we love our wounded warriors and our military vets. And it's just a great thing to support. So check out Delan's Handmade Woodworking if you want to get involved in that. I know there's going to be carving giveaways and stuff of that nature. So many awesome things going on in the we call it the tribe or the carving community. There's a whole bunch of us that hang out here. So woodworkers, anybody in the chat that's in blue, check out their channels. Just so many talented people, and just blessed to be a part of a community of so many good folks.
Jane says hi.
Hello.
I forgot. Elegant kind of promised everyone that if we reached 1,000 subscribers, you were going to do a happy jig.
Happy what?
Jig.
Who was?
You.
Me?
Yeah.
Elegant promised
You
that?
promised that, and now we're at 1,100, so
I gotta do a happy
you're
jig?
kind of on the hook.
Oh my gosh, you guys just love humiliating me. You know I can't dance. I can't sing either.
They're all waiting.
Alright. It's not gonna be pretty. You're gonna be sorry.
I'm kind of scared.
What's that?
I said I'm kind of scared.
I'm scared too. Let's do this stuff.
Michael S. said, do it, CD. Michael S. sent a Super 100 in anticipation. He knows it's going to be good.
Alright, see if we can get busy here. Back to carving.
Does that mean you're not going to dance? There it is. Elegant gave $20
Thank you, Elegant.
for the happy jig.
You didn't have to do that, but we appreciate it.
Got Michael Wilbur here, and it looks like Mark and Michael are going to try to carve a mushroom like yours.
Right on. Yeah, Mark, I know Michael S. already did one mushroom, and it came out awesome. So I think everybody's been waiting for him to carve something else. So that's cool. And Mark is just did his first chainsaw carving the other day, and it came out really nice. So mushroom is an awesome place to start on a beginner project, and you can't go wrong. There's so many different size and shapes of mushroom. And I actually have a really good how-to video up on my channel. It's one of my better how-to videos, how to carve a mushroom. So check it out.
Francisco here.
Man, we burnt through a whole gallon of gas.
and busy.
Yeah, I guess so. Saws are thirsty. But there should be plenty to take us through. for the little saw. I think that one's getting just a little dull. I'm going to try this.
Just a quick question, because Pilata says he can't stick around much longer. He asked,
Who asked?
Pilata,
Pilata?
do you typically sell your carvings with or without paint or stain?
I usually sell my carvings finished. Most of the work is actually in the carving part of the process. So applying the finish is really not a big part of it. So sometimes people will ask if I give a discount if they finish the carving themselves. And typically I don't. If I do, it's a very small one because, like I said, most of the hard work's been done at that point. So most all the carvings that go out of here are finished. These big black bears are getting ready to leave this coming week or weekend. And you can see they're finished with stain and weatherproof, and the same with the peace bear over there. So a lot of times the finishing process is more, it can be a little more time consuming as far as we have to get good weather and the wood has to dry out. This 6-footer over here, he's getting ready to leave, and we've had all this rain, so it's just a process of getting dry enough weather so that it can burn the wood and that the wood finish can be applied to it. So it's not always stuff we can just tackle and get done right away.
Billy Munko is here.
Hey Billy, check out Billy's Instagram. Billy's an awesome supporter. He's always hanging out on the live streams, and he's a chainsaw carver, talented guy.
And Elegant asks, how often do you apply weatherproofing and what kind do you recommend?
So typically, like on the bear, the peace bear over there, That's burnt with a torch. That's how I get that coloration. And we're using a product called CWF UV Clear. So CWF stands for clear wood finish. They use it on like decks and log homes. And that's a product that you can get through Home Depot. It's a flood product. And so we do ours every year. We recommend in the springtime. It does have the UV product for the sun. And if you take care of them, they actually kind of build up like a golden hue kind of a look. Yeah, every year, give them a coat. Nothing fancy either. We slap it on with a brush, drips and all. It just soaks into the wood.
The electric whittler is here and said that's some pretty fancy looking stuff.
Thank you, Josh. Electric whittler is, again, as far as I'm concerned, a ground level tribe member. Awesome member of the community. He just has a great channel. He released a video, I think yesterday or the day before, of spoon carving. And he does a lot of like Dremel carving, but check out Electric Whittler. Talented dude. If you like watching wood carving, worthwhile.
How to anything, is that Joe?
Yeah, that's Joe.
Okay.
That's Joe's new channel.
Hey, he's here.
Hey, right on. So check out How To Anything. A lot of people know that how to is a big thing on YouTube. People tune in a lot to learn how to do different stuff. And I can say that Joe legitimately knows how to do a lot of stuff. I've watched him do a lot of stuff. So check that out.
Pilato asked, do you need a sand between the applications of CWF?
No. Each year you put the new coat on over the old coat. So what it does is it soaks into the wood. It's a penetrating kind of a finish, as opposed to like a polyurethane that'll build up and sit on the outside of the wood. Polyurethane, you're going to want to sand and get the old finish off before you reapply, most generally. The CWF you just put on each year.
Billy Munko asked, can you paint after using CWF?
Yeah, there's no reason not to. A lot of times I'll paint before I apply the CWF. So, like for example, these black bears have a black nose and black eyes. And, so I paint all that kind of stuff, and then I just kind of slap the CWF on over the paint and whatnot.
Mike is making stuff is here.
Hey, Mike, thanks for being in here.
I think that catches us up.
Cool. Are we gonna finish this mushroom, or what's the?
Sure, it's 6:02.
Oh, okay.
We have Rick Smith.
Hey, Rick.
We have Sophie from Under the Bark.
Hey, Sophie. She's got a cool channel. I've been popping in on her a little bit here and there. Check out her channel. She's doing some cool stuff.
And Jimmy Smith.
Who is it?
Jimmy Smith.
Hey, Jimmy.
That's it. Michael S. and a Super 100.
Thank you, Michael. That's awesome. We appreciate that.
And, oh, Lori Keller, no, I don't think we have any plans to fish this weekend, do we?
Yeah, I'm telling you. Tomorrow's my day off. We're going to go to church in the morning. And I think we're going to rest. It's overdue. Last week on my day off, we were traipsing around out in the mountains in the brooks, destroying our sneakers. But that leads me to remember that we're releasing a video tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock.
6:15.
6:15. So check out our new video. We're putting out a long form video. And, features a big bear carving with a sign, a custom ordered sign. But we also go fishing. It showcases our area, just some of the most beautiful stuff. We've got all kinds of footage from when we've been hiking, and it features a brook trout fishing trip. So it's all kind of intertwined and worked in together. But I think it's a cool video, and I think you guys would enjoy it. And we would definitely appreciate it if you watched it. So check that out. That drops tomorrow.
Sophie says, hi, you are awesome.
Oh, thank you, Sophie.
The Electric Whittler sent some happy poop.
Thank you, Electric.
Hey, we reached 1,200 likes.
Wow, that's just
1201.
amazing. Thank you so much. We were excited to get 1,000, and so we just blew that away, and we appreciate it. We really do. We just appreciate you guys hanging out with us while we carve, and we're having a lot of fun with it. And yeah. So at the end of each live stream, we read a verse. What's the verse?
Sophie just sent 50. I don't know what that currency is, but
50 Canadian.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
Thank you,
Thank
Sophie.
You, Sophie.
Very
we really
kind.
Appreciate that. You didn't have to do that, but we don't take that lightly. So thank you very much. Somebody post Sophie's channel up there. Post her link and stuff.
I think Electric Whittler did.
Nice. Thank you very much. Yeah, check out her channel. I keep popping in, and I have to put on the subtitles because it's in French. I guess she's a French Canadian, but all you have to do is put on the subtitles if you're English speaking. And she's doing some really cool work, so check her channel out. And yeah, where's the scripture?
It's over on the pedestal.
Cool. So this week it says, "For God saved us and called us to live a holy life. He did this not because we deserved it, but because that was his plan from before the beginning of time, to show us his grace through Jesus Christ." 2 Timothy 1:9. So we're going to leave you guys with that, and our next live stream is on Wednesday. We'll be here at 2 o'clock. I'm not sure what we're going to be carving yet. It might be a pea spear, a big pea spear. I've got another order for a pea spear, so we'll see. But anyways, Wednesday at 2 o'clock, and we're going to leave you guys with that. Thank you so much.